And maybe I would feel differently if it wasn't for the multitudes of rumors that it was rigged in Mexico's favor from the start. But even then, her performance was objectively not as good as the rest. So, there is a new Miss Universe. And a part of me just wants to get right into the scandal of it all, but I just can't do that. I have to do a complete review where we talk about every single thing that happened. Not only because there are people who have worked really hard to produce this show and to make it what it was, but also I think it adds very necessary context as to why the winner who was chosen is such a scandalous choice. For the opening number, I did enjoy it a lot. I like the fact that the performers on stage had these crisp white dresses on. It was very Thai, obviously, with Miss Universe being hosted by Thailand this year. And then when the contestants themselves came out, they were wearing these sort of retro metallic dresses. The cut was a bit strange, but I didn't mind it, and I also loved the uniformity of the opening outfits. It was very much giving OG 2000s sort of Miss Universe. And of course, for the introductions, it was just the same old women being forced to scream their country name into a mic. Argentina! Which of course is not my favorite method of introduction, and there was even a bit of a mix-up with Côte d'Ivoire when she paused and Croatia just screamed right over her. Olivia Yacé. I think both Croatia and the cameraman thought that Côte d'Ivoire had finished her introduction, but undignified screaming aside, I do think that the introductions felt very nostalgic for me. I think it was like a combination of the music, the outfits, the lighting. Many people always ask me, Rina, why don't you do live reactions? Guys, usually when it's Miss Universe, it's 3 or 2 a.m. in the morning for me where I live in Namibia. I literally watch Miss Universe looking like this, and so I'm not gonna get all dolled up at 3 in the morning to go on a live, you know what I mean? Speaking of the introduction, I just have to mention the UAE. Her introductions always crack me up. There is not a single ounce of enthusiasm in there ever. United Arab Emirates! She's like, ugh, you want me to introduce myself here? Damn. The guy who was singing also cracked me up a little bit. It reminded me of like when you hit your pinky toe on that one piece of hardwood furniture in your house. One thing that I did love was that the host started off the competition with acknowledging the passing of the Thai Queen Mother as well as other natural disasters in the area. I just found that to be very respectful. But as he was speaking, I was looking over to Egypt, and her face just always looks like she doesn't believe a word anybody says. Of course, this year the judging panel has also been a point of contention, with 3 judges quitting before the competition, which is wild. But on this year's judging panel, 2 people who I thought were very deserving of being on the judging panel were Andrea Meza, who was of course Miss Universe 2020, who's also from Mexico, and now that I'm saying all of this out loud, it just adds fuel to the fire. But then there's also Natalie Glebova, who was Miss Universe 2005. With all of that aside, let's get into brass tacks and talk about the top 30 that was chosen, because there were some real shockers here. By the way, I love that they got right into top 30. We didn't have to wait too long or sit through too much fluff. No wasting time. I love that. So the women who got into the top 30 were India, Guadeloupe, China, Thailand, Dominican Republic, who was not on my list, but not a shock either, Brazil, Rwanda, who was a bit unexpected. Honestly, even she looked shocked. Côte d'Ivoire, although the host did botch her name, so nobody knew who he was talking about at first. Côte d'Ivoire! Luckily, our girl Olivia had the intelligence to realize that the host had botched the name. Colombia, Netherlands, Cuba, Bangladesh, Japan, Japan was a little bit out of left field for me as well as Puerto Rico and the USA. They split the announcement of the top 30 into two halves. So they announced the first 15 candidates at first, and then they had a little break, and then they announced the second round of candidates, which consisted of Mexico, the Philippines, Zimbabwe, who was a bit surprising because she wasn't on my list, but overall I did enjoy her swim performances, so I was so happy for her. Costa Rica, Malta, Chile, Canada, Latina, who is also another point of contention, Croatia, Venezuela, Guatemala, Palestine, Nicaragua, France, and the fan vote winner actually ended up being Paraguay. So to be honest, looking at this top 30, obviously as someone who is South African, Namibian, someone who has personal ties to both of these countries, having been born in one and living in another now, I was sad and a bit heartbroken that neither of my home countries made the top 30, but it was not as impactful to me as the fact that Turks and Caicos and Portugal didn't make it. Turks and Caicos not making the top 30 is diabolical. Also, Portugal, like, I wanted to be like a math teacher and say, show me your work, like show me the calculations, what variety of math did you do, which excluded Turks and Caicos and Portugal from the top 30. Overall, with the top 30, I got 19 out of 30 correctly, which is a passing grade. However, 11 out of 12 of my top 12 did make it into this top 30. So for the swimsuit competition, after this questionable top 30 had been called, a lot of these swim performances really made me question some of the favorites who didn't make the top 30. Usually when it comes to Miss Universe, as soon as it's finals and it's the swimsuit competition, it is usually just a bloodbath from the start, but some of the girls this year were just a little bit meh. At least the swimsuits were cute. I did like all of the Thai elements on the swimsuits. But if we're going to focus on the positive, I think that Côte d'Ivoire ate the swimsuit round up as usual. France is also so enchanting in swimsuits. With the candidate representing Miss Universe Latina, there is no denying that she was coming strong. With Palestine, she wasn't necessarily the best. In fact, she didn't have much of a performance at all, but she is just so much herself. You know, she's so natural, and she's very much a sentimental favorite for me. And then Puerto Rico came and demolished the stage with her masterful performance. Venezuela didn't anticipate that her cover-up would come off that early, but she handled that scenario beautifully as well. So if I had to put a label on the Miss Universe swimsuit competition, I would say it was definitely a mix of, oh my goodness, this is such a beautiful Miss Universe swimsuit performance, and what are you doing on the stage instead of Turks and Caicos? The poor host had to improvise a little bit when the top 12 list was late. They said that the judges were still deliberating, almost as if it wasn't rigged. But it was so funny how he sort of demeaned himself by doing this walk. It's sort of like a regular person competing amongst Olympic athletes. One thing that I did enjoy was when the top 12 was called, they played these short videos introducing us to the top 12 and telling us a bit more about themselves. And the top 12 did end up being Chile, Colombia, Cuba, Guadeloupe, Mexico, Puerto Rico, Venezuela, China, Philippines, and honestly, she's just the cutest. I love her. Thailand, Malta, and Côte d'Ivoire. And before Côte d'Ivoire was called, you know, I was thinking in my head, oh my gosh, there's only one spot left. I was getting so nervous, but I was so glad that she was called in the end. Overall, 8 out of 12 of my top 12 made it. There was no Miss Universe Latina in the top 12, which was a bit surprising if you take into account her performance and how masterful it was. Many were also accusing Cuba of getting into the top 12 by shady means. And understandably, many people were perplexed by India not making the top 12, which is understandable because I think that she could have easily made the top 12. So obviously with the top 12 comes the evening gown competition, and for this they had a live orchestra that stood on stage. I think it would have been better if the orchestra were like in those holes on stage, but that's a very small side tangent. For the evening gown competition, Chile was wearing a rather simple dress, but I like it. It's just enough detail to catch the eye, and I love this color on her. For Colombia, she was walking a bit fast, but she was so pretty and feminine in this relatively simple dress. With Cuba, I didn't like how the top of this dress looked, to be honest with you. With Guadeloupe, she just seemed so mature and regal in this. It honestly suits her vibe and I love it. With Mexico, it was very red and conservative. Really, I was unsure if this suited her, especially with her winter toned skin. For Puerto Rico, the drama of the cape is a lot, but I think that honestly she can pull off anything. With Venezuela, I will ignore the discarded, haggard feather thing at the back because this is really beautiful. This specific tone of red is perfect for her. With China, I really love the addition of the blanket. You know, it gets really cold in these venues. With the Philippines, I thought it was interesting, giving jellyfish. The Philippines is just always so innovative, you know. For Thailand, this was just simply amazing. It was so classy. She speaks for herself and she doesn't need to be overdressed. For Malta, I love fringe, but I don't adore the top of this dress. It seems too simple compared to the drama of the bottom. And lastly, for Côte d'Ivoire, the discarded cover-up was entirely unnecessary, but the elegance and performance speaks for itself. She was magical. I absolutely adored it. So overall, I'd have to say that my favorites from the evening gown competition was Venezuela, Thailand and Côte d'Ivoire. And at this point, it was also 5 a.m. and I was like stress eating a croissant. It was time for the top 5 to be announced, and I just have to give props to this host. He was so funny. I want him to host Miss Universe from now on like Steve Harvey used to do. Don't get me wrong, he is no Steve Harvey, but at least he has jokes, you know what I mean? I love the idea of comedians hosting pageants. It just keeps it very entertaining. So the top 5 was Thailand, Philippines, Venezuela, Mexico and Côte d'Ivoire. And at this point I was thinking to myself, I would have much preferred Guadeloupe to Mexico in the top 5, but I was honestly just so happy with the rest of this top 5. I felt like it was very well deserved, with the exception of Mexico, whom I would have replaced with Guadeloupe. And at this point I was also thinking back at the fact that throughout the past few days there have been rumors that the entire competition was rigged in favor of Mexico. Personally, I try not to focus on those types of rumors in pageantry, but her placement in the top 5 really did give me pause at this point, especially since she placed over the likes of Guadeloupe and Puerto Rico. But more on those rumors later, obviously. And at this point of the top 5, I was in desperate need of coffee, so I rushed to the kitchen, put on the kettle, stared at it, willing it to boil faster whilst listening with one ear whether or not commercial break has concluded. I also just have to say that the performer they had at Miss Universe this year has such flares. Honestly, if he has 0 fans, I am dead. So for the first top 5 Q&A round, all of the contestants had to choose like a little envelope and then they were all asked different questions. So first up was Thailand, and she was asked which issue she would raise at the UN, and she gave a very good answer. I felt like it was mature, it was level-headed, and it was a very respectable answer. She talked about equal rights for women in the workplace and otherwise.
Raise your voice for women equality.
Philippines was asked what her contribution to humanity would be, and she was talking about how she would give people hope, talking about her story of triumph, where she comes from. Again, she was sincere, she was clear, she was honest, and this type of answer really commands respect.
I was hardworking, I was persistent, and I fight for what I want. Thank you.
Venezuela was basically asked how she would promote empathy and understanding between cultures. She starts out very good, but it does seem like her train of thought tends to wander a bit to the end.
It is our future, the children, the elder, the people that see us, that hear us, and we depend on making the difference.
Mexico was asked a surprisingly complicated question, which added to the fact that I don't think that she gave a good answer. She was basically asked 2 questions. She was asked, what are the challenges of a woman in 2025, and also how would you use the title of Miss Universe to create safe spaces for women? In my mind, this is 2 different questions, although they are able to be linked, and I think she struggled to answer, and for me, from my perspective, she was clearly the worst in the top 5.
As a woman, Miss Universe.
Côte d'Ivoire came up and she was asked what emotional skill needed to be taught to children in school. Of course, there are a variety of emotional skills that children need to be taught, but the one that she talked about was self-love, which I felt like was a good answer. It was not a revolutionary answer, but good enough to get her into my top 3 for sure.
We'll urge every young man and every young woman to love yourself first.
Overall, I would say from the top 5 Q&A, when it came to substance and delivery, my favorites were definitely Thailand, the Philippines, and Côte d'Ivoire. Then we had another Q&A round, and this time everybody got the same question and the rest had to wear, noise cancelling headphones so that they could not hear the question or the answers of any of the other girls, which is the best way to do it. And the question was a very simple question. It was, how would you use the Miss Universe title to encourage young girls? Thailand gave this believe in yourself type of answer, delivered with lots of grace and maturity. She is not very self-focused on her answers, which I love. I also have to add, I love that we didn't have girls who droned on and, put on this fake sort of voice for this year's Q&A. It felt very fresh and sincere all around.
It's not about how you fail, but how you rise up.
For the Philippines, she actually mentioned a specific organization that she is currently working with and says that she would like to continue to work with them. It's a very practical answer and therefore I respect it and liked it a lot.
It doesn't matter what your life circumstances is. It doesn't define where you will go.
Venezuela gives good answers, but I think in a very subtle way, she sort of gets lost in her own thoughts. I think if you look at the way she answers, it does become very evident quickly that she is talking as she is thinking. She's not thinking and then speaking. She is just starting to speak and hoping that the thoughts will come to her. At the end of the day, she does give very acceptable answers. I just think it's interesting the way that she delivers them.
To influence positive activity from the girls, from the children, for everyone that watches this platform.
For Mexico, she also talked about spreading a message of self-love. The answer itself was very similar to Thailand, but in my opinion, it was delivered less well.
Because you're worth everything, and you are powerful, and your voice needs to be heard.
With Côte d'Ivoire, she talked about wanting to be a role model. It was an expertly crafted answer. In and of herself, she's already so impactful, and so I just felt like her answer was beautiful.
If I'm Miss Universe, I want to be a role model for all the young girls and let them know that you too can make it.
So my favorites from the second round of answers also was Thailand, the Philippines, and Côte d'Ivoire. This was now the cemented top 3 in my mind. But of course, we couldn't get right into the crowning. First, it was Victoria's final walk. And can I just say, Equatorial Guinea having a dance with another girl in the background is just such a mood. Victoria's final walk gown was giving bride a little bit. I just love, though, how we've been seeing the most ostentatious ball gowns as final walk gowns. This one was a little bit too short, though. It was noticeable. I just love how emotional she is from the start and throughout her final walk. Obviously, I got emotional as well, as per usual. And after saying goodbye to Victoria, it was finally time for crowning. And this ruined my day. The fourth runner-up was Côte d'Ivoire. My life flashed before my eyes. I was like, what? Surely not. In my mind, she was the winner. Fourth runner-up, I was shocked. Third runner-up was also shocking. At this point, I was absolutely fuming. Second runner-up was Venezuela. If they had said Thailand as the second runner-up, I think I would have flipped my desk over, because in my mind, Thailand was supposed to be like the first runner-up under Côte d'Ivoire, not Mexico. And the final 2 was indeed Mexico and Thailand. And after everything that had happened, all of the rumors and such, Mexico in the top 2 was very sus to me. And once Mexico was announced as Miss Universe, I was just like, oh, wow, Wow, she under-delivered in the Q&A, you have to admit that. I am not one to usually say that a win is not deserved, but her performance throughout the competition, in conjunction with the rumors of it being rigged in her favor beforehand, is shocking. And I don't want to insult any Mexicans or anybody here, and it's not even that I don't like Fatima Bosch. I like this woman. I just, in principle, do not agree with her winning because of the fact she was objectively not as good as the other contestants who were in the top 5 with her. Many will like this result because she did have a fight with the organizer Nawat, who is in charge of Miss Universe Thailand and all of that. And so we did feel sorry for her when she went through this. And people will see this as justice, but it just doesn't feel right if you just look at her whole performance against the others. Like I said before, the top 2 for me was Thailand and Côte d'Ivoire, with Philippines as the second runner-up. And maybe I would feel differently if it wasn't for the multitudes of rumors that it was rigged in Mexico's favor from the start. But even then, her performance was objectively not as good as the rest. And we, as viewers, are expected to be ecstatic for whoever wins, and usually I am perfectly satisfied with whoever wins, but this year just feels like injustice on a whole new level. Honestly, I just want to say, like, show us the scorecards, because what socks were these judges smoking during commercial break? And Lucas, the guy who runs Road to Miss USA, said that her statement after being treated badly by Nawat was even better than her Q&A answers. And like, why is it so true? I just feel deceived and gaslighted, like the Miss Universe organization is insulting the intelligence of all of their viewership. If in fact it was rigged, they made a grave mistake of putting her in the top 5 with the likes of Venezuela, Philippines, Thailand and Côte d'Ivoire, who absolutely ate her up during Q&A. And like I mentioned earlier in this video, there were 3 judges who quit beforehand, and one of them has been quite vocal about the fact that he has quit as a judge because of discrepancies. He said that the top 30 had been selected before prelims even, and now he has come out saying that yesterday, before the finals had taken place, he had spoken to HBO and said that Mexico would win because allegedly Mexico's father is in business with the owner of Miss Universe. It's a whole mess. Miss Universe has a lot of cleaning up to do. For me, it's the audacity of them playing in our faces like this, as if we couldn't see with our own eyes that Mexico wasn't the best in the top 5. It's crazy to me that Mexico won. No amount of explanation by anyone can explain to me why Mexico won. She, to me, should have been 4th runner-up instead of Côte d'Ivoire, who actually should have won. I don't want to sound mean. I'm sure she'll be a perfectly acceptable Miss Universe. That's not what it's about. It's about blatant injustice when it was so clear that there were other contestants who were stronger than Mexico in the top 5. I'm sure she'll be a perfectly capable Miss Universe, but there are people who put so much money, so much time, so much hard work on the line in order to get their candidate to Miss Universe, or to get themselves to Miss Universe even, and this just feels like playing in their face. And yes, I am referring to Côte d'Ivoire. Côte d'Ivoire's face has been thoroughly played in. Okay, I need to calm down. I need to calm down. I feel like I have been robbed. I feel like I woke up at 3 a.m. for no reason. Your Miss Universe is going to have a problem on their hands throughout the next few weeks, because I'm telling you right now, this video is the first of many, because there are going to be so many contestants and other people coming out talking about their experience at Miss Universe this year, and it's going to get very messy. Not to mention this judge who quit. He also said that he spoke to HBO, like I said yesterday, and there's going to be a whole thing coming out in May 2026, which ought to be interesting. I just feel like such a clown having followed Miss Universe 2025 in earnest. Honestly, I'm embarrassed for myself. Anyway, let me know what you guys think. Thank you for coming to the circus. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.